Once upon a time, in a small village nestled amidst vast green fields, there lived an old woman alone in a tiny house beside an ancient Bodhi tree. Despite her advanced age, silver hair, and deeply wrinkled face, her eyes still shone brightly with kindness. No one in the village knew exactly where she came from, but for many years, she had been a source of warmth and peace to those around her. Every morning, rain or shine, the old woman would sit under the Bodhi tree, offering a gentle smile to passers-by. The villagers adored her, not only for her kindness, but also for her ability to remain joyful even in difficult times. While many worried about daily struggles, she always wore a smile, as if she had discovered the secret to happiness. One day, a young woman named Anika came to see her. Her face was tear-streaked, and her voice trembled. "Grandmother, I don't know what to do. My husband, Ravi, went to the city to find work, but it has been a long time, and he hasn't sent any money back. My children are hungry, and I'm afraid he may have forgotten us." The old woman gently patted Anika's shoulder and said, "Sit down and tell me. What do you think will happen?" Anika wiped her tears and lowered her head. "I don't know, grandmother. I feel like everything is falling apart. What if my husband can't find a job? What if he never comes back? What if we have nothing left to eat?" The old woman listened, then simply smiled and softly said, "When you fill your mind with negative thoughts, your heart becomes heavy, and everything around you appears darker. But if you focus on the good, you will feel lighter and find the strength to face your challenges." Anika looked at her doubtfully. "But how can I think of good things when everything around me is so bad?" The old woman smiled kindly and shared a story. Once upon a time, there was a poor man. He had no money, no food, and no family. One day, he sat by the river, lamenting his fate. An old woman passing by saw him and asked, "Why are you crying?" The man replied, "I have nothing. How can I be happy?" The old woman smiled gently and said, "But you have a river that flows endlessly, trees that provide shade and fruit, and the sun that warms you every day. If you only focus on what you lack, you will always be sad. But if you cherish what you have, you will find peace." Hearing this, the man stopped crying and began to observe his surroundings. He saw the sparkling river, the lush trees, and the warm sunlight. From that day on, he worked hard, and his life gradually changed. The old woman finished her story, looked at Anika, and said, "Do you see? The man's life didn't change because of magic, but because he changed his way of thinking. When you focus on the good, you gain the strength to face difficulties. But if you only think of the bad, you will feel exhausted and hopeless." Anika was silent for a long time, then softly asked, "But can my thoughts really make a difference?" The old woman nodded. "Of course, my dear. If you wake up every morning and tell yourself that today will be a good day, you will have more motivation to care for your children and work hard. But if you only think of everything that could go wrong, you will be overwhelmed by sadness." Anika wiped her tears and smiled faintly. "I understand now, grandmother. I will try to think of good things." The old woman patted Anika's hand. "That is the first step, my dear." From that day on, Anika followed the old woman's advice. Each morning, she reminded herself, "Today will be a good day." She worked hard, took care of her children, and waited for her husband with hope in her heart. A few weeks later, she received a letter from Ravi. He had found a job and sent money home. Overwhelmed with happiness, Anika ran to the old woman's house to share the good news. The old woman simply smiled kindly and said, "Do you see? When you embrace life with a heart full of hope, good things will come. Difficulties are part of life, but if we face them with a positive mindset, we can overcome anything." The old woman's story quickly spread throughout the village. More and more people came to her for advice. And to everyone who visited, she always said the same thing: "Think of good things, and good things will come." The villagers began practicing this mindset, and gradually, their lives improved. They were no longer consumed by worries and fears, but instead learned to trust and hope. Happiness did not come from wealth or circumstances, but from how they perceived life. One day, a man named Tien visited the old woman. He was a talented carpenter, but always felt dissatisfied with life. The old woman listened to him pour out his frustrations and then gently said, "You have skillful hands capable of creating beautiful things. But instead, You use them to build walls of complaints and regrets. Use those hands to create something wonderful, and you will see your life become more beautiful. Tien followed her advice, crafting exquisite wooden items and sharing them with others. He realized that joy did not come from possessing more wealth, but from creating value for others. Not only Anika and Tien, but many other villagers sought the old woman's wisdom. A farmer named Ben, who constantly worried about failed crops, was advised, "Look at the seeds you've planted. They are sprouting and growing every day. Trust in the power of nature, and you will reap a bountiful harvest." Ben followed her words, tending his crops more diligently, and that year, he had the best harvest ever. A shy little girl named Mai, insecure about her talents, was told, "You have a beautiful singing voice. Be confident and share your talent, and you will bring joy to others." Mai joined her school's music group and became a beloved singer. The old woman not only helped with words, but also through actions. She visited the elderly, bringing them small gifts and warm encouragement. She shared food and clothes with those in need. One day, a great storm hit the village, destroying many homes. The villagers panicked, but the old woman remained calm. She said, "Let's help those who have suffered losses. If we share what we have, we will get through this together." The villagers followed her advice, working together to rebuild and support one another. They realized that through unity and kindness, they could overcome any hardship. After the storm, the villagers cherished and respected the old woman even more. They saw her as a mother, a teacher, and a friend. They learned from her valuable lessons about compassion, optimism, and the strength of unity. The old woman lived a simple and peaceful life. She had little wealth, but a heart full of love. She had no power, but greatly influenced the villagers' lives. She had no fame, but a noble soul. One day, she passed away. The villagers grieved, but did not mourn excessively. They knew she had lived a meaningful life, and her teachings would live on in their hearts. They built a small shrine beside the Bodhi tree in her memory and named it the Shrine of Kindness. Every year, on her Memorial Day, the villagers gathered to pray and share stories about her. They promised to live according to her teachings. Her story spread to neighboring villages, and many people visited the shrine for guidance and peace. It became a place of spiritual refuge, where people found hope and tranquility. Life is not always easy, but with a heart full of hope, we can overcome anything. When we change our thoughts, we change how we see the world. And when we change how we see the world changes with us.